Hello again, rail fans, and welcome back to the CSX S&NA subdivision on the morning of Saturday, January 21st, 2023, for my first outing on the WNA of 2023. And this day was about to be a special one, and I'll get into why in a minute. But starting out here in Kennesaw, we'd be greeted by a high green on track 1 for a southbound, which would turn out to be M20319, daily southbound auto racks out of Osborne Yard in Louisville, Kentucky, down to Baldwin, Florida. So the reason why I said this day was gonna be special is because almost a week prior, on Monday, January 16th, 2023, on the CSX S&NA North Subdivision, CSX and NS both share a lift bridge in Decatur, Alabama, which at some point during that day, a barge had hit the bridge, and the damage to the bridge was so bad that no trains could run over that bridge for the next few days, which meant almost all the CSX traffic that ran through there had to be rerouted onto the WNA. And I was hoping I would be able to get out here, and I was just before it would all end, as by this time, the bridge had already been fixed, and trains were starting to run that way again. But there were still a few reroutes profiled to run the WNA, so we would see a few on this day. And the next train that we would see would actually be a reroute, which was pretty much right behind this M203. Just under 10 minutes later, and our second southbound is knocking on our doorstep, which would be the reroute. The reroute would be I-941, which is usually numbered I-141. I-941 is the reroute symbol for him, and I-941 runs out of North Baltimore, Ohio, down to Fairburn, Georgia, just to the southwest of Atlanta, where they have their giant intermodal facility. And today, I-941 will be powered by 3 locomotives, and the locomotive that was second out would be CSX T5327, which is their Western Maryland sticker unit. This train was quite the nostalgia trip for me, as there has not been any daily scheduled intermodals to run on the WNA since June of 2020. Now I know the WNA gets L709 and L710 every day, but those are just locals, and sometimes they don't even have any cars. Now after I-941 would pass, we would start to head north, and during that time, I was looking on Facebook and would come to find out that there was a B218 on the KD sub the day prior to this and was coming southbound, and since I know that trains can run down the KD/Etowah subs very quickly, I thought it may have already passed through here. But then just a few minutes later, I came to find out that the train was just north of Chatsworth at the Appalachian Regional Port area, so now that I knew that he was quite a ways out and I haven't seen a train on the Etowah sub in quite some time, I wanted to get north of Cartersville on the Etowah sub and catch him coming south. So that's the direction we would go. We are now set up at the 417 milepost just north of Wyvern Yard along the Etowah sub for B218. And something I forgot to tell y'all earlier while I-941 was passing through Kennesaw was that I was pretty adamant about catching this train at this spot because of its lead power. The lead engine was CPGVO number 8935, and then the trailing unit was BNSF Heritage 2-9 number 5261. And just for some backstory, the first time that I ever caught a train coming through here back in May of 2021, I wasn't very big into photography. And once I became big into photography, I always wanted to catch a southbound train coming through here in good lighting and with good power. And on this day, it just so happened that this train would have foreign power and it was in good lighting. So after a year and a half, I would finally get the picture I wanted of a southbound train coming through here in good lighting and with good power. After B218 passed us here, he would have to stop at Jenna for another reroute, so we would head north to Adairsville to get a bite to eat and find a spot to set up for him. After grabbing some lunch, I would decide to head to the south end of Martin Marietta to catch our northbound reroute. Our reroute would be I-92619, usually numbered I-126, which runs out of the Port of Savannah up to Memphis, Tennessee. Now the reason why I came here was because I was hoping I would catch this train coming through here at track speed, which is 60 miles an hour, I believe, but this train was probably only going about 25 to 30 miles an hour, which was pretty underwhelming. But the sound of a distant K5LA would make me turn my camera around and get ready for our northbound.
Clear south end of Martin Marietta, CSX 156 northbound, main track I-92619 out.
CSX Equipment Defect Detector, milepost 67.62. No defects. No defects. Total axle 280. End of transmission.
After I-926 passed, I knew of two southbounds coming from the north, but they were still a ways out, so we would just head back into downtown Adairsville and wait on them as the traffic slowed down. Just under 2 hours later, over the radio, we'd hear our first southbound calling signals to the north of us. Then about 5 minutes later, we'd hear the sound of a distant K5HL blowing for the crossings just north of downtown. Our first southbound will be M583, and since I haven't seen M583 in quite some time, some of y'all may have forgotten its origination and destination. 583 runs daily out of Radnor Yard in Nashville, Tennessee, bound for Hamlet, North Carolina. On his way, he works Waxahachie, Tennessee, Cartersville, Howell Yard in Atlanta, Palmer Yard in Decula, Maxwell Yard in Greenwood, South Carolina, and Monroe, North Carolina. On this day, 583 would be a 2x3 combo, meaning there were 3 mid-DPUs, but it didn't make much sense because the so-called mid-DPUs were 13 cars from the end of the train, and I think only one of them was running. After 583 passes here in downtown Adairsville, he would slow down at Martin Marietta for an unknown reason, so that gave us enough time to get in the car and get south of him at a new spot that I wanted to try just north of Kingston, so that's where we'll be heading next.
CSX Equipment Defect Detector, milepost 67.62. No defects. No defects. Total axle 632. End of transmission.
We have now just barely gotten ahead of M583 and set up at the milepost OWNA 60.0 on a driveway in the middle of the field. Now back up to track speed, 583 flies past us heading south into Kingston. Coming into downtown Kingston, we would go over the tracks and there would be an approach for a southbound to the north end of Kingston siding, which would be our second southbound that was behind M583, which would be our last train for the day. And about 15 minutes later, I would start to hear the sound of two GE motors roaring around the corner into downtown Kingston. This would mark the arrival of our second southbound, M515, out of Radnor Yard in Nashville, Tennessee, bound for Rice Yard in Waycross, Georgia. As far as I can remember, this is the first train that I've ever seen struggling to get into downtown Kingston. Every other train that I've seen go through here has been going at about track speed, which is 45 miles an hour. After M515 passed, our day would come to an end. But man, what an outing this was. It's been a long time since I've had this busy of a day out on the WNA. It feels like the old days all over again. But until next time, this is Georgia Rail Productions saying so long from Milepost OWNA 58.8.